Hello there, my friends, and welcome to Flourish Writers. I am Mindy Kiker, and together with Jennifer Kokert, what a delight to host this community of writers, and a joy to be here today with Marie Palecek. Welcome, Marie.
Welcome. Good to be here.
What a joy. We are super excited to chat with Marie because she has some extremely valuable information to share with us from her authorly experience. She is a multi-time self-published author, and she's done a lot of collaborating in the writing space in the last, how many years, Marie?
Whoa, this 2000, probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. And we've been so thrilled to have Marie around Flourish Writers a lot of that time. And what a joy to connect with her. She is skilled, qualified, and an amazing cheerleader. So tune in and listen to all that Marie has to share with. Particularly today, we're going to be chatting about guest posting on online publications and specifically Marie's amazing experience with Chicken Soup for the Soul. So, Marie, kick us off with just sharing why you originally sought out online publishers as a way to share your message.
Well, for me, it's selfish and practical. Because online publishers, they have a reach that's a lot further than mine. And I'm taking a lesson from nature, and by God's design, flowers are designed to pollinate, but they need bees and birds and the wind to actually spread their seeds. And without these pollinators, their reach would be extremely limited. And so I look at my writing, my message, the same way. God's planted it on my heart and in my heart first. And He wants me to minister to other people, but my reach is pretty short. Um, and at me. Um, and so my reach is extremely limited. And online publishers, they're my pollinators. Um, and their reach is further than mine. And some of my pollinators reimburse me. That means I get paid. Some of them don't. It just gets to spread the message. So I began my writing career as a volunteer in a leadership role for a children's ministry. That's when I began writing devotions. And of course, volunteer is not a paid position. Um, and one of my favorite pollinators is Chicken Soup for the Soul. And what I love about their books is they're fun and they're inspiring. They're all true stories. Their website is very encouraging and it's detailed and informative. Um, but any online publisher that you want to invest in, the big thing is to follow their guidelines precisely. That's one thing that you learn quickly. And what I appreciate Chicken Soup for the Soul is this right on their website. They do not reject any story. They don't send out rejection letters, which really helps our self-esteem. They get thousands of admissions for each book that they publish, and they can only choose 101 stories. So they say right on their website, please don't take our silence personally. Um, and Chicken Soup for the Soul will pay you $250 for your story. Plus, you get 10 free copies of the book that your story is published in, and they also pay for shipping for that. And then you can always purchase more at a discount. So they've been one of the fun ministries to work with.
That's awesome. I love that metaphor, Marie. That is apt for the reason that you would want to put yourself out there and look for places to share your message, that you can get in touch with somebody else's bigger audience and start and find some readers and find some companionship because it's been fun. The relationship with that publisher has been so much fun for you and beneficial working with editors and stuff like that, which we'll get into more. When you look for publishing opportunities, how do you determine that a particular ministry aligns with your message?
That's a great question. And the only way to know if any ministry, whether you're doing a speaking ministry at a church or submitting something for publication or consideration, the only way for you to know is to know what their message is. You got to read their stuff. You have to submit to their, or read their magazine, read their books, read their website. You have to know what their message is so that you know it aligns with yours. And otherwise, to be totally honest with you, you are wasting your time and talent and theirs. So you just got to know, you got to know your audience, but you also have to know your publisher.
Yep, that's very solid advice. Yep, and just look into what they've been publishing. That'll tell you. And their submission guidelines. A lot of them will tell you what they are looking for, the types of articles or stories. So I'm channeling a lot of our listeners, Marie, and I know there's authors, writers out there, writers who want to become authors out there who are afraid of putting their words out into the world and having people scoff or scorn or say, ew. So, part of putting yourself out there is you have to be willing to face rejection. How are you going to be successful if you don't risk having somebody say, no, thank you? And you faced that. So how did you keep going when you heard nothing or you heard, no thanks, Marie. We don't have space for what you've written.
Well, first of all, if you're going to bleed onto the paper, bleed onto the page, you're making yourself vulnerable. And first and foremost, you need to be comfortable with that, as uncomfortable that is. And you're only comfortable with that because your relationship with the Father. If you don't have that relationship where you can trust Him with your story, you can't trust other people. So your number one um, weapon, I guess, would be is prayer. Ultimately, you have to realize that your story is God's story. Um, and I have I had to learn to separate my story from from my story from who I was. As a writer, we become our story, and our story is us. So when they reject our story, they're rejecting us, and that never feels good. But we have to realize they're not rejecting us, they're just rejecting our story or that part of the story. And it could be for various reasons. Um, there's a saying out there that man's rejection is God's protection. And I definitely have experienced that. And no, it was not very comfortable. Um, but early on in my writing career, I knew I had a really good book proposal. I had a really good idea. I knew it was God given and all that. And I submitted it to several publishers. Sometimes it was in a internet. Sometimes it was over email, submitted it. I've actually been in person at writing conferences and submitted this great proposal. And I tell you what, when you're sitting across the table from a person who doesn't even write a single note on their notepad sitting in front of you don't have to wonder because their message is clear. You're not good enough. In hindsight, those rejections have been a blessing because God was protecting not my story, He was protecting His story. And I can tell you today, I shudder to think how poorly I would have displayed His glory if anybody would have accepted that before I learned the hard work of self editing and submitting and getting the right people behind me. Um, my first devotional book, um, I'm so proud of this, and Flourish was a big part of this getting published. When this was finally published, God's glory is on every single page. And if this had been published prematurely when I thought it was good enough, that would not happen. So I actually submitted a devotion to Carol Kent. She oversees Speak Up Ministries, which is a, a real cool, they do writing conferences and stuff. And it was the gift of rejection. And in there, I just kind of spilled my guts on what a cool gift it is to get no, to get that door slammed in my face. And she actually published it on her Speak Up blog in October of 2023, actually it was. And it it really helps me, and I read it every once in a while when you get that stab that they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting the way you're presenting that story. And it's God's story, and He's going to protect that story because it's His. And we can't get ahead of that.
That's
So
good, Marie. And we'll provide a link to that article so that people can read that. I know that's going to be a blessing. The gift of rejection, it's for your best. So that's super helpful. And you mentioned that in retrospect, you still had a lot to learn about the craft of writing. And we've done a lot of that together at Flourish and, through various
mhm.
ways that you've had opportunities to in your own writing life to just write, to get critique, to get edited, to get feedback from readers and all that kind of stuff. So that all has helped you to grow. But what do you think in your experience from your having been published at Chicken Soup for the Soul 4 times now and looking at other submissions, what makes a strong submission at Chicken Soup for the Soul?
That's a great question. And number one, you got read their books so you kind of know what they're looking for. But whenever you're submitting to any publisher, it's imperative you follow their guidelines. Can't stress that enough. They're very clear, and if there's one little thing that you just thought, well, that's not that important, well, if they put it in their guidelines, it's important to them. Um, Chicken Soup for the Soul, I love that their website spells out their guidelines very clearly. They give you suggestions on this book is this title. This is what we're looking for. They actually give you some kickoff questions and stuff, which really makes it easy to maybe spark something in your head. I really appreciate that about them. Also, I noticed I was on their website just kind of going through looking to see what stories they're looking for. There's a lot of anti AI language currently. So publishers do not want you using AI. They want your creative story, your creative juices. They want you to develop your talent. That's in my opinion. But the AI language out there, they're against it, and they don't want that. So just FYI, I know that seems like an easy route. It's not. It's a detour. Chicken Soup for the Soul. The story has to be yep, true. It has to be first person. It has to make the reader either cry, laugh, get goosebumps, or say, "Oh, wow." Um, it has to have, this sounds so elementary. It has to have a beginning and a middle and an end. Seriously, it's right on their guidelines. Um, your story has to start with action for Chicken Soup for the Soul. They want you to grab that reader right away. Um, we often call in the writer realm, call it the hook. Um, and Chicken Soup for the Soul receives thousands of submissions for each book. Remember, they only take 101. So my guess is if you're receiving thousands, and some of them are like 2 and 3 thousand for the one book, I bet if that hook doesn't catch them within the first couple paragraphs, I would really be surprised if they read the rest of that story. I think you got to grab them right off, and you got to grab your reader right off the bat. You got to grab your publisher right off the bat. So developing the craft of that hook, I think, is crucial. And starting with action, dialogue is another great way. Flourish does excellent on teaching this stuff. Learn the craft of show, don't tell. Now, I'll be honest with you, I read all the Chicken Soup for the Souls that I'm in. So everyone I read all 100 and other 100 stories. I read them, and some of those writers, those authors, I will be honest with you, I don't think they craft the show don't tell as well as they could. So here's, in my opinion, here's one of the clues that you're becoming more of an author than just a writer is when you can see that another author, another writer isn't do that they could do better on the show don't tell. And as my craft is developing, I'm recognizing that more in other people. And kickback is I get to recognize it in my writing too. So it's learning. You got to learn this stuff. It's vital. Your story has to be 1,200 words or less, not 1201, 1202. Don't squeeze a couple more words in there. So you need to learn how to, oh, I hate this phrase, but it's so true. You got to learn how to kill your little babies. That's what you got to do. My writing partner and I often say, ooh, there's a lot of blood on the floor, but the operation was successful. And we laugh about it, we cry about it, but that's a skill you just need to learn is how to self edit. And it's torture. I'm not going to lie to you, but it's beneficial
Oh,
for what that's worth.
absolutely. You are 100% correct. And it's fun when you notice that your eye is becoming trained through your own experience, your own growth as an author, and you can see where improvement is both for yourself and for others. So that's awesome. So if somebody is here with us, Marie, and they're thinking, well, this all sounds really good. Maybe Marie is super special. Like she's just so skilled and amazing that she was able to do this. But could I? Do you have any advice for other Christian communicators who are thinking, I should really put myself out there? Maybe I should look at publishing opportunities with online ministries.
Well, my advice is there's no substitute for investing the hard work of knowing what they want. Um, I shop Amazon and I don't say, Amazon, just give me whatever you think I would need. I don't walk into a restaurant and say, yeah, just throw whatever you want on my plate when I'm looking for a new pet for to adopt. I don't just say, yeah, whatever's available, I'm good to go. They need to know what I want in order for me to get what I want. And you got to look at publishers the same way. If you don't know what they want, you can't deliver. So time is our most precious commodity. It's money. We can always make more. We can do less. There's a whole lot of stuff we can do to make up the commodity of money, in my opinion. Time, there's nothing you can do. You get 24 hours a day. No matter how you spend it, invest it, or waste it, that's all you get. And so I don't like to waste my money, my time. Um, and I don't want to waste my publisher's time. And I don't want to waste my God given story because I don't think that pleases God or anybody. Um, so I look at it as my story is God's glory, and I don't want to dim that light. So invest the time, submit what they want, um, and know what they want so that you can submit your story to their guidelines. Um, that's the most important thing. I look at the parable of the talents and the guy that buried the master's money instead of investing it. I think about that that servant. God has given us his story. He's planted his story in our hearts and he wants us to share, but he wants us to invest in it. And if we don't invest in it, we can't share it for his glory. Um, and one thing I do like about Chicken Soup for the Soul too is they don't buy the rights of your story. You retain those. I forgot to say that before. Um, they want first rights, so they want to be able to publish the story, your story first, and then you can publish it wherever else you want after that. And if you publish it on your website, on your blog, All you gotta do is let them know that, and that's acceptable as long as it's not a big scale. But they don't buy the rights to your story, and that's another key thing that you need to look at with publishers. Are they buying the rights to your story, or are they buying the rights to publish your story? So do your homework.
Amen. It's good advice. When you think about your growth as a writer and becoming an author over the past few years, what what is the experience of becoming published done for you?
Mm, that's a great question. It is exciting. When you get that email and saying, "We're considering it," you just wanna jump up and just shout, "No!" I mean, it's not for sure, and they put that in the stuff that it's not for sure yet, but you made that final cut and stuff. You just wanna shout to the world, but what I really wanna shout to the world is, "Look what God did. Look what he did, and he used me to do it." It helps to keep the perspective. And I just want to encourage, um, you can acknowledge what God has done through you without you being prideful and getting your head all blown up, because at the end of the day, you still got to fit through the door to walk out of the room. And if you got this big knocking head up there, you're never going to fit through the door. So you got to just keep that in perspective. But it's what God did, and he used you to do it. Now, when I first joined Flourish Writers, I was very intimidated and discouraged by all the inspiring stories from other students that really had powerful messages to share. And I just looked at my story and just said, it's got nothing of value. What have I got to offer? And my story wasn't good enough. It wasn't strong enough. It wasn't compelling enough. It wouldn't matter to anyone. But then I realized that I was saying God's investment in my life wasn't good enough, wasn't strong enough, wasn't compelling enough to matter. And I can't imagine how much that saddened God's heart to hear his daughter speak with such disrespect and disregard for what he has done. That really changed how I look at my story. And he's really blessed me through that. Um, Being published didn't change that, because it's not my story, it's God's story. Writing is what's really changed my attitude. And being published for me is an affirmation of God's glory in my story. And that is exciting. I think of myself, I've said this before and other stuff, but I think of myself as a prism. And when you shine light through a prism, you get to see this rainbow. And I can celebrate the rainbow that I produced, but I'm not the light. The light is God shining through me that produced the rainbow. And when you realize that God is using you, you have to realize he actually needs you to produce the rainbow. See, the light doesn't produce the rainbow, the prism does. He's using us, he needs us in there. But here's the matter, we're just a chunk of glass. So come on, can't be prideful about that. But being published means I got to see rainbows. And it also means I want to produce more rainbows, because I just want to witness God doing that through me. And that is so exciting. I can't tell you how exciting it is. And yeah, you're yippee skippy. And you got to have a prayer team. You got to have people that you just want to share that joy and like jumping off the roof with you. So it's just really cool. Um,
And you were successful, even though you're a regular person, Marie.
I'm a nobody, but he's but I know who I am because of him. I
Yeah.
it's It's totally about perspective,
But
and
you
when you lose that, you've lost a lot.
and you
Yeah.
wouldn't have been successful if you didn't submit your writing.
Yep.
Yeah. That's like step number one.
It's
And
yeah.
you were smart about it. You found the places where it was clear that your style of writing, you're hilarious. Like you create these amazing, quirky stories from the pages of your life. Like it's so fun. It's fun going on a little story journey with Marie. You had to find places where that fit.
Yep.
And
And
you
it,
do all kinds of writing. But that's one of the things that I noticed about some of your stories are just hilarious.
thank you for that. That is true. And if you don't want to be rejected, it's very, very easy. There's a solution for that. There's an app for that. It just means don't submit anything. So if you don't submit anything, you'll never be rejected.
Right.
I hope that's not your goal. But yeah.
Exactly. So, one of the reasons that you and all anyone makes that decision to put your toe in the water and start to get your words out there is for community building because we're all sitting here in our little quiet place wondering how we can find readers. You know, it's one of the big question marks for writers. And so that was part of your desire, and has that happened? How has that worked for you? What how have you parlayed your publishing opportunities into community building?
Another good question. For me, the first thing I had to do is find what success was. And we all have to do that. Is it publishing? Is it being a New York bestseller? What is it for you to feel like you've succeeded? Um, for me, it was when my story helped people recognize God in their story. And that was one person at a time, one story at a time, one life at a time. Sometimes it was a ripple. Um, when I get an email or a phone call or just a quick little, hi, I shared your book with so and so, and she just loved this story or that story, and they bounced around. That is very gratifying for me. Um, so you build community that way. God also last year opened up just out of the blue two speaking opportunities, which I never thought I wanted to be a speaker, but I was going to pass them up, and I loved it. And you can sell books there, but you can share your message to a bigger audience. I found that was really scary, intimidating, yeah, all of the above. Um, but I found that was really an exciting way. And a year ago, or probably a year ago, is when I was prepping it. So 2 years ago, yeah, that was not on my radar. And now I want to do more of it. My life's got to get a few chunks back in the water, um, but I want to do that. So that was cool. The other thing that I really, really cherish, and this might sound quirky though, but Flourish Writers, just the way it's set up, and I know this year has been a tough one for me, so I haven't been involved, and even part of last year, but I like being with First Writer and being with other writers, whether it's virtual, Zoom, or in person, which I haven't had that many opportunities. Since I was a deer in the headlights once as a writer, I can recognize that. And I like to encourage other writers to write their story. And that story just wants to bubble out and it wants to spill onto a page. And when we are called to be a writer, we are called to write the story that God entrusted in us. And the only way to learn how to write is to write. And we are called to share our God given story, and not everybody gets that privilege. And to be honest with you, not everybody wants to invest in it. I kind of look at it this way when I look at the community. whether it's small group, at least small group, and I get to share some of my quirky stories with them and different things. But if you had a rock and you threw that rock into the lake, we always talk about that ripple effect and how our impact reaches far beyond the initial impact. Our impact on our community, our world, will reach far beyond what the rock is aware of, because that rock just sinks to the bottom and it sits there unnoticed. And it's just one story or part of one story. But we don't know what the ripple effect of that one story is. We don't know what our rock is going to produce, what the ripples are. But I can guarantee this, it's not going to do anything if that rock stays in your hand. There's going to be no ripple, there's going to be no effect. So God's invested in us. He expects us to invest in our gift. Um, and if you want to venture into speaking, invest in training yourself, because that's a whole different ball game than writing. Same avenue but different. But invest in that so that you're presenting God well on that. Um, so anything more on that, Mindy?
That's awesome. Thank you, Marie. You're preaching there. Very
Okay.
encouraging. Yeah, that's good.
But
Yeah, thank you. So for people who are thinking, maybe I want to do chicken soup for the soul. That sounds kind of nice that they pay you. I have some more money to invest in myself and my writing. What is something that only insiders would know? Give us that inside view.
chicken soup, I'm not involved. I've been involved in a few different publishers and publications and stuff, and I've been in writing groups where they talk about their publishers. One thing about Chicken Soup for the Soul, but most publishers do that, they assist you with promotional stuff like social media postings, advertising. They'll help line you up with book signings, let you know kind of how to do that. The bottom line on that is when you sell books for them, they have more books sold. So they're helping you to sell the book, which is which is how cool. Sometimes if you're self-published, you help sell your own books, but when you're involved in another publisher, they help you with that. So that's kind of cool. You get that support and education. One thing that's unique about Chicken Soup for the Soul, from my perspective, because the other publishers that I've been involved with haven't done this, they hold a Zoom meeting for contributing authors. So all the 110 or 101 authors that were in this Chicken Soup for the Soul book are invited to a Zoom meeting so you can meet other authors, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure how long they've done it or how long they will continue. Sometimes they divide them into two groups. So if you're a first time published author, you're in a group with a bunch of first time contributors. If you're in been in previous published, previous contributor, you might be in that group. And no, not all 101 people show up. But it's kind of fun to actually see other authors to hear their story. But the cool thing about that is you actually get to meet your editors. And all the editors, four of them that I've been involved with Chicken Soup for the Soul, they've all been women. Um, and they got some men on staff and stuff, but I just haven't seen them yet. But they welcome you, get this, they welcome you into the Chicken Soup for the Soul family. And by the way, can I just give you a little hint? If you are working with Chicken Soup for the Soul or speaking about Chicken Soup for the Soul, please say the whole Chicken Soup for the Soul. Do not abbreviate to chicken soup. They found that very offensive. I didn't do it, but somebody else did it, and I learned really quick on that. So just make sure you use their whole name if you're working with them. Just a hint shows respect to them. My fourth story in Chicken Soup for Soul was actually featured on their podcast, which I found exciting and interesting. And I listened to the podcast, and she didn't even read my story. She shared it in a way that would intrigue people to purchase the book and read my story. I thought that was kind of a cool way to roll. So, for what it's worth, I loved working with Chicken Soup for the Soul. Like I said, no rejection letters. They might actually, yeah. I think the story that was in this one, I submitted it almost 2 years previous, and I hadn't rewritten it yet. Um, and then they said, no, this is going to work great for this book. So they might not use your story because they've already got one or two that are similar to it. So they'll put it in the back burner. Um, can you resubmit a story? Sure. If it's not accepted, rewrite it, tighten it up, get that
Mhm.
hook a little bit better, get those first two paragraphs tighter, throw some dialogue in, do some serious self-editing, resubmit it, and just say you already submitted it under this title or whatever. So if your story isn't accepted in that book, submit it for the next one. And I've done that with a couple of them. I need to do some more words that are not, haven't been accepted yet. I love the word yet. It's such a cool
Yet.
word. But but resubmit it. Just get your writing better. Every
Mhm.
time you do it, you're going to be a better writer as long as you put in the hard work. So
Absolutely. So you have had a good experience with Chicken Soup for the Soul. I love that you get to meet your editors. That's amazing. And you know that it's such a growth curve to be edited by a professional editor. That is so good for us. Like you can hardly you cannot overestimate the value of having somebody go over your words and give you that feedback and see what they would change. You know, that's how we learn in that with that one-on-one contact with a professional wordsmith. But you have also had some not so great experiences. So I just wonder what words of caution you have for writers out there who are now all inspired to go start submitting their work, but depending on what that online publisher offers to us as writers, what should we be looking out for? What are some of the pitfalls?
yeah, the big pitfall I would do is do your homework. Make sure you know what the package deal is, what you're getting out of it, what they're offering. They are they're salesmen. Okay. Um, and I don't want to offend anybody about being a car salesman or Best Buy salesman or whatever, but all salesmen do one thing and they sell. They sell their product. And this is what they're doing, and that's their job. And you don't sell a product unless you want to make a profit. So think of it that way. Does Chicken Soup make a profit? Yeah, they sell these books like hotcakes, okay? So yes, they can pay well. They're very good about treating their contributors well and stuff, because they're making money off your story, but they're compensating for it. I had a devotion published in a collection book with other authors, which I think is a really good way to roll. Um, and each of us contributor paid the publisher a fraction of what it would cost to edit, cover design, interior design, all that kind of stuff. And it sounded all legit and upfront, and I mean willing, because it was like, yeah, if I had to pay for that, it would be a lot more money, even if it was just my one devotion. So I didn't mind doing that because the end product would be really good. I'm spoiled with Chicken Soup for the Soul because I kind of expected that. I know the cost when you self-publish, and it was a publishing company. I know their cost invested in the book would be, pretty minor, to be honest with you. So I thought in the whole thing that there was free copies coming, which would really help, um, to kind of combat my investment in them. Um, they did do a lot of helping us with self promoting and stuff to sell their book. They said they would offer us to purchase the book at a discounted price. Their discounted price was half the retail price, and then we had to pay shipping. It's like, that's not a deal at all. So should you shy away from publishers that ask you to pay something up front to help publish your story? Ones that want to promote you and help get your name out there and advertise all that. Um, I wouldn't shy away from them. What I would do is investigate. Um, if you get a bad experience, um, it's just that. It's a bad experience. No publisher out there should be, or no author out there should be investing thousands of dollars to get their books published. And I've talked to other authors, and that's exactly what they did. They got their foot in and da 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 da, and then before they knew it, some of them had like 3 and 4 and north of there, thousands of dollars invested to get their stuff published, and they got nothing for it. So just do your homework. Um, Nothing is free. In fact, our gift to salvation, we think of it as free. It wasn't free. It cost Jesus his life.
Hmm.
So nothing is free. And they want you to help um, sell their product. And by the way, a lot of these free workshops out there are to lure you in to buy you and sucker you into their product. So they're not all bad. I mean, Flourish actually uses that strategy.
Sure.
Nothing
Yeah.
wrong with it.
Hmm.
So those free, but be careful what you think you're getting for free, and
Hmm.
be careful when they're promoting that this is going to help you. If it's not helping them, um, the bottom line, you just gotta just do your homework and
And
know what you're investing in.
look at the fine print on the contract. And if somebody's not willing to share a contract with you, that would be a red flag. So just think about the normal red flags of any kind of partnership or negotiation and use your common sense to understand clearly, especially if somebody's wanting you to pay them, which for most online publishers, like we're talking about here, that's not the case. That's not what somebody's going to be. That's not what they're promoting to you or pitching to you. But just to be aware, especially if any money is changing hands, rather have them pay you than you pay them.
That is very, very true. And I learned that way. The other thing is before you investigate, say yes or anything, um, search them. Just do a Google search for reviews and stuff. I had another one that approached me, and I went, sounds too good to be true. So I did a search, and I went, oh, way too good to be true. Um, but and then sometimes you can find when you go through the reviews and you go through the negative stuff. I've actually contacted some of the authors in there because I read it and it's like, can you tell me more? And they go, "Mm." But they give you more without discrediting the company. So do your homework, and it seems too good to be true. Sadly, in this day and age, that hasn't changed. It usually is, except for Flourish. That's
Yeah.
always too good to be true. No, but
Yeah,
do your
that's
homework.
cool.
Do your
Absolutely.
homework.
So, Marie, we are going to wrap this thing up. It's been such a delight to chat with you. But before we go, you want to share with us advice for writers who want to be authors.
Yes, I would love to share a few tidbits. Bottom line, you got to write your story. No substitute for that. You got to get it out of the box. You got to get it on the screen. You got to get it on paper. If you're going to put a puzzle together, you would dump all the pieces on the table. Now, that pile of mess doesn't look anything like the picture on the front of the box, and your end product isn't going to look like what you begin with. And then you start with the easiest part. So whatever is the easiest, that's what you start with a puzzle. It's the framework. Then you start working on clusters of the interior. When you're putting a puzzle together, that's what you're going to do with your story. You're just going to start putting things together. You're not going to worry about what it looks like. You're just going to start fitting things together. Number two is, I said this earlier, but you got to realize that your life is not one big story. It's a lot of stories, and they're interwoven with scripture, they're interwoven with God's hand. And so when you're writing it, don't worry how everything fits in. You might be flowing, da, 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 you're in a flow, and then you go, whoa! And you might have three stories there that you're going to have to dissect and figure out. But when you're writing, write. Just let it flow. Don't worry about if it's first person, third person, present tense, past tense, or don't even worry about the spelling. Okay, just write. Just get it out. Because here's the deal. You can't edit a blank page. That's just impossible. So get it out. Um, this was a big one for me, and this is one I don't struggle with this, but I constantly have to put this through my filter is write to your reader. Um, you got to write to your reader. There's very important details in your story that matter to you, and your reader doesn't care about them at all. Sorry, but that's true. Um, you need to kill those little precious babies. Just put them off to the side. Maybe your family's all interested in that part of your story, but your reader isn't. Yes, it's going to hurt, but your reader is going to appreciate it. So go ahead and get it out, but then you're going to cut them out. Pray. Without prayer, you're going to depend on yourself. And that's a shaky foundation for any of us. Um, I might lack a lot of confidence, but I also suffer from the sin of pride. And so God has an app for that too. He refuses to give me anything without prayer. Even if the ideas been dancing around in my brain all week long, when I sit down to write, there's nothing without scripture and prayer. And prayer is just obedience. So before you submit anything to any publisher, it needs to be submitted to the Lord. Um, Next is your prayer team. There's difference. The prayer team is essential because you can ask for specific prayer. Um, and when you do that, it helps you to articulate what you actually want to say or what you actually want to accomplish. When you pray by yourself, you don't do that. So a prayer team will help you that. And it's very humbling to ask for that kind of support. But here's the deal, without support, you fall down. And your prayer team will provide power and energy through scripture verses that God brings to their mind so that they can bring it to you. The other thing is your writing partner. And your writing partner could be one of your prayer partners. Mine is. But you need to bounce your story off of writing partners so that you want someone who is going to support you and not just be a cheering squad. They don't they're not real efficient. More like a peer coach. My writing partner is strong where I'm weak, and she's weak where I'm strong. Our backgrounds are different, so sometimes she will totally reject um, idea I had, or she'll do this re-edit suggestion, and it's like, it's that's not even what I'm trying to say. Well, I don't get defensive about it because she just told me that I didn't deliver my message. I thought I was clear, but I certainly wasn't. So we in our if you want a writing partner that within all those red edits are encouragements like I love this, never thought of this way. This is really good. And we'll switch things around, but we strengthen each other's writing, and it's going to be one-on-one for you with a writing partner. And if you got more than one, that would be even great. But I've just got one. Um, Realize there's a difference between being a writer and being an author. There's a phrase, if it was easy, everyone be doing it. That doesn't apply to writers because not everybody can write. So first of all, you need to be called. You need to be gifted to write. So called to write, gifted to write. But writing's not easy. What authors do that writers don't is they learn the craft of writing. Self-editing is brutal, but it's necessary. And if you go back to the parable of the talents, the two servants that invested their master's money, they earned him a profit. God has invested, He has given you a talent, He's given you a gift for writing. He expects you to invest in it so that it is profitable for Him, for your outreach. So you need to learn the craft of writing. There's no substitute for that. And the only way to do it is anything else in life. You got to do it and learn it. And the final one is realize that your story is unique. Your audience is unique. Your audience is going to be different than mine. Your story is different than mine. But the God we serve is a unique God, and He can handle it. Um, and I'm always here for you. Um, you can email me. I'm not really good on the Facebook thing right now. I don't have the time with for that. Um, but I'm hoping to get back into that later on when some things settle down. So, anyways, that's it.
Thank you, Marie. Marie Palecek, you are such an inspiration. You have created some amazing resources. You figured out Canva, you figured out KDP, you're on Amazon, like you've done all the things. It's really exciting to see you grow and become an author, publishing your own stuff and getting your words published with other online publishers and using those relationships to build your confidence, to grow in the craft of writing, and to really create for yourself a community of writers and authors who care about the similar things that you do, and readers who enjoy reading your God stories. What a thrill. And just as an aside, like Chicken Soup for the Soul is not specifically religious, is it?
No,
Yeah, so just
you cannot,
clarify.
yeah, you cannot be preachy.
Mhm.
It's okay for you to include, but it's not a devotion.
Mm-mm.
So writing devotion, that comes natural to me. Learning to write for Chicken Soup for the Soul, I had to not so much step out of that, but it's a different craft. It's a
Yeah.
different style of writing, and so you need to learn to do that. And can I do my calendars?
Yes, please show us your calendar.
I created. Oh God, give me the. I thought it was a really cool idea, but perpetual calendars, and I
Woo!
created it on Canva. So Canva is so cool. And these perpetual, so it's the one that sits on the shelf and you just grab it. It's got everything in it. And I put a bunch of trivia. I'm a trivia buff, so I put a bunch of that in the front and stuff. And I created those, and they're just like super fun. And there's a lot of people that are buying them. So if you live in Minnesota, you can actually buy them from me. Otherwise, they're on Amazon. But once you get started in Canva and KDP and stuff, the world's your oyster. Go for it. It's
It is.
it's
And
just
those of you who are new here, just in case you're hearing us say KDP and it's like, what is that? That is Kindle Direct Publishing, and that's the publishing arm of Amazon. So that's how you get your book onto Amazon is uploading it through KDP, and that's how you have your books printed on demand. So you don't have to have a garage full of your books. People can just order them one by one from Amazon. So, Marie, you
and
have,
you can order author copies for a
yeah,
much discounted price. So you can sell them on your own.
yes. You can have a
That's the beauty
box.
of KDP too. If you want a
Yes,
garage full of books, you can do that. I don't
absolutely.
advise it, but
Yeah. Well, if you're going to that speaker engagement, then you will want to bring a box of your books along because that's
right.
so neat that that opened up for you, Marie, last year, and I hope that you have more opportunity to speak and pour your heart into the lives of others. But what a
Thank you.
joy. I am grateful that the Lord connected us here at Flourish Writers, and I wish you all the best with your big dreams and your enthusiastic can-do spirit. I'm so fond of you, Marie. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. And
And thank you for being here with us today, Flourish Writers. We love to see you flourish in your writing life, one story at a time. Bye for now.